I will give you words to the audience now, if there are any questions or comments. Of course, like I said, you can always use the rest of the 3 days to approach and to ask what is important for you. And I already have some notes, and I believe that project partners from the Horizon project also made some notes and find out some nice information here. And I'm really glad that you recognize that one specific part of the horizontal cooperation with universities, and somehow I believe that we are all here feel invited to participate and to cooperate, and we are pretty much happy to see the first draft and then to react. You heard that majority of the speakers today are already connected, and this is, let's say, the strong point of the green transition in Serbia. And particularly what is important that one of the donors with deep understanding and strong commitment to a green agenda for the Western Balkan, Embassy of Sweden, is here together with us. And I will invite Her Excellency Ms. Annika Ben David to address the audience and to give a short speech about how the Sweden and Embassy of Sweden, how they support the whole process here in Serbia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be with you today, Mr. President, Professor, State Secretary, of course, dear Sandra. Can I just first say how excited I am to be inside this magnificent building. You know, I've crossed it so many times, walking up and down the main street outside. Over the years I've been in Serbia, but I've admired the facade. And I know, of course, that it's a landmark historical institution, but this is the first time I set foot inside, and it's just as magnificent inside as outside. Now, honored representatives of Belgrade University, regional research partners from the Western Balkans and Europe engaged in the green agenda. It is a pleasure and a privilege for me to have the opportunity, to be given the opportunity to address you today at this international scientific conference on the green agenda for the Western Balkans. As an ambassador for the EU country that now holds the presidency of the European Union, I was very happy to learn about the Green Force project, that it's now bringing together researchers and scholars here in beautiful Belgrade, scholars and researchers from the region and beyond, from Europe. I'm sure that you will have 3 great days of exchanges and interaction and networking. Let me first say that research and international cooperation is absolutely crucial, not only to assess and support societal development, but also to strengthen our knowledge-based decision-making and fostering a European and regional democratic dialogue. Therefore, your engagement and participation here are important on so many levels. Now, one of the 4 priorities for Sweden's EU presidency these first 6 months of 2023 is to lead by example in the green transition. Because if the EU cannot take the lead, who will? The EU needs to show that it's possible to choose a green path. And as you all know, this is done by delivering ambitious climate goals, boosting growth, boosting competitiveness, and triggering action through green investments. We see clearly how the European Commission and the EU member states are taking steps, acting towards a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy. When the EU Green Deal was translated into the EU Green Agenda for the Western Balkans in 2021, this sent an important message. The EU needs the Western Balkans, and the Western Balkans need the EU, in order to tackle transboundary pollution and to green the EU internal market and for trade relations. I'd like to bring up one example from our EU presidency. This is the EU Industrial Emissions Directive, EID. That's a concrete example on how knowledge-based decision-making can trigger the green transition of the European Union. This EU directive is also at the heart of Sweden's development cooperation, the reform support we afford to Serbia. As many of you know, the EID is the main EU instrument that regulates pollution coming from industrial installations, but also from large intensive livestock farms. Now, for decades, research and science have built the knowledge basis for the EU member states to set ambitious goals when it comes to reducing emissions. These ambitious emission reduction targets are translated into EU legislation to reduce industrial pollution. For decades, research and science have also managed to support and trigger an impressive green technology development. The best available techniques are now the standards incorporated in the EID, the directive. And then in March this year, under the Swedish chairmanship of the European Council, the EU presidency, the Environmental Council, which is the format that is comprised by environmental protection ministers from all 27 member states, reached an agreement to review the EU Industrial Emissions Directive. And Sweden is proud to having succeeded in having all 27 member states agree on new rules for industrial pollution. These new rules will strengthen requirements even further in order to reduce pollution and to align our ambitions with the European Green Deal targets. Now, obviously, for industry, which will have now to fulfill even stricter regulations, this will be a challenge. We all acknowledge that. But I think Sweden, the EU, the other member states are convinced that this is simply a necessity in order to safeguard our health and to ensure that the polluting industry makes necessary green investments that, in the end, will enhance their competitiveness. And this is actually the beauty of EU environmental regulations, that together we always strive to improve and raise the standards for our performance and our standards. We want to lead by example. And as I said, EU standards should be based on acquired knowledge, experience, and scientific research. And you are part of that knowledge generation. So in sum, the EU Green Agenda is not about only doing green, but it's also an edge in competitiveness. Now, the Swedish government gives strong priority to the EU path of our Western Balkan partners to Serbia's EU integration. Our government supports development projects in the whole region and environmental reform, and the Green Agenda is one of the key priorities. And here in Serbia, we are proud to say that we are the country's top bilateral partner on environmental protection reform. We support the government. We are in a close partnership with the government, the Ministry for Environmental Protection, with local self-governments, with the municipalities, of course, with civil society, with business and research institutions, academia, in the green transition. Together with the EU, we have prepared wastewater treatment plants in Serbia, and we have introduced a recycling reform in 17 pilot municipalities. And both endeavors are well underway now. But I'd like to mention two of our cooperation projects in particular. For the implementation of the Industrial Emission Directive, we work together with the Ministry for Environmental Protection and Belgrade University, the Faculty of Metallurgy and Technology. Here we see important progress. Serbia is now preparing its legislation, new legislation on industrial pollution, to fulfill standards. This is happening at a time where we see more and more industries that understand that they need to invest in the best available technologies to secure trade with the European Union and to take responsibility for decreasing pollution. Central and local authorities and inspectors get training to support the implementation. And green financing is growing by the day to support investments in green technologies. You will hear later today Mr. Petkar Uskokovic, Dean at the faculty. Sweden is very proud that the work together with the Cleaner Production Center to support knowledge-based decision-making in Serbia is addressing industrial pollution. The other project that I wanted to highlight is the EU for Green Agenda in Serbia. Together with the European Union delegation here in Belgrade, the Serbian government, the UNDP, the European Investment Bank, and the Swiss government, Sweden supports the implementation of the Green Agenda in Serbia. One could say that all of us together, we have boarded a green train together to make the journey towards green transition, a transition that will take us towards also the European integration of Serbia. That is the overriding goal and purpose of Sweden's engagement and presence here in Serbia. The last years, we have seen that more and more stakeholders are boarding this green train. You will hear Mr. Radovan Nikčević from the UNDP talking about this project later today. The green journey that we have boarded needs to welcome as many passengers as possible. This will not slow down our train, but speed up the green transition. And to conclude, my final comment here today is that the green transition needs to be not only knowledge-based, but it needs to be an inclusive and participatory process. In fact, a democratic process. So your engagement as researchers, as scholars, to provide research analysis and dialogue is crucial for this process. I hope that you will have the opportunity now to strengthen your European networks and actively follow, monitor, and analyze the green transition. I hope that your engagement and your important research will provide decision makers and society with the necessary knowledge to make the green journey better and faster. I wish you a great conference. Thank you very much.